Every day we have to do things for people at work, and most of the time the tasks are simple. But what if a coworker needed you to do something that put your life at risk? Would you do it? It happened to two of our colleagues here at 2020, and we were so moved by their story that we wanted to share it with you. Here's Bob Brown.
When Ani takes me out, it costs me a lot of money.
Ani's a good friend.
As friendships go, you wouldn't pick them for a match at first, which helps explain the constant teasing that goes on between them.
Oh my God,
You love it. It's supernova.
sorry.
Joan's a Brooklyn Italian kid. Ani has Armenian roots.
I like that.
But this year, one main overriding event dominated both their lives. Ani suddenly needed an organ transplant, and there the teasing stopped. It's a story I got assigned to, and I was worried about how to approach it because I know them both, and I can't be objective. We all work together. Joan LaFosse assigns production staffs who research and gather story material for 2020. She is Ani Mosey and Whitney's boss. Ani is a field producer who once got most of her assignments from Joan. Both had gone through emotional havoc. For Joan, it was losing one of the most influential people in her life, Nancy Pfifferling, a teacher, a friend, and a mentor who saw potential in Joan when Joan doubted herself and helped place Joan at ABC. In 2002, Nancy Pfifferling was diagnosed with lung cancer and died within a few months. During that time, feeling helpless, Joan leaned on Ani and regarded her as a kind of lifeline.
She really got me through a period that I was drowning. I felt like I was drowning, and she got me above the water.
Ani had experienced chronic kidney failure in her 20s. Doctors don't know why. And she had received a kidney transplant in 1996 at the age of 25. When she married Will Whitney in her mid-30s, one of her goals was to have a baby, despite the additional strain it might put on her transplanted kidney. It was a risk her doctors agreed to, and Joan understood how much Ani had invested emotionally in taking that chance.
I think in knowing her, it's probably the greatest thing she's ever wanted in her life.
So Ani could be forgiven for doing her pregnancy test on company time.
You know, I went to the bathroom, did what I had to do, and all of a sudden I'm looking in the stall, I'm like, oh my God, it says I'm pregnant. I can't believe this. And so I went in and I called Will right away.
She emailed me a photo of the pregnancy test. That's how I found out.
The third trimester was when problems arose. Ani's kidney function began to decline. Doctors monitored her constantly, but saw no improvement.
And then kind of all of a sudden, from her perspective, at the end, things started to fall apart.
Ani had been under the care of Dr. David Cohen, director of kidney transplantation at New York's Columbia University Medical Center.
And so we would go week by week, and when things really started to become problematic, it was clear that you go too much further, you would endanger the mother, you endanger the baby.
The decision was to take the baby 7 weeks early by C-section. And if there was ever a doubt that Ani is an obsessive news producer, that was erased the day she gave birth, February 2nd, 2008, when in labor pains she said,
Don't forget to cue my husband.
ordering her anesthesiologist to make sure Will got the money shots with his digital camera.
He tells me to start taking pictures, and he's like, Dad, photos.
And the most amazing photo just came out of this.
Our doctor holding the baby out, and Maddie's just reaching up into the air, look like she's looking up to God, like, thank you, and there's a light coming down right on her.
The star of that moment was a girl they would name Madeline H. Whitney, Madi for short. Everyone hoped that Ani's kidney function would stabilize after that, but it didn't. Joan LaFosse was one of the first to know that her friend, a mother for barely a month, was in failing health and needed a new kidney transplant. This time, Joan sent an email that was uncharacteristically short. It said, "Call me."
So then I called her, and she kind of started crying, and she said, you know, I'm ready to donate my kidney to you.
All she said was, really. in the softest voice I've ever heard. And I think she, we cried and we laughed.
And I'm just like, are you kidding me? And she was like, no, I'm serious. I think I'm meant to do this.
The offer Joan made to Ani was not only a way of surmounting the helplessness Joan had felt over a death she could do nothing about. Joan doesn't plan to have children of her own. And as much as anything, this was a gift to Madi, to restore her mother to health so Madi would never be exposed to the difficulties she might otherwise have to face.
Good girl.
For family members, it wasn't quite as easy to accept. Joan's husband, Eric Paulson, a composer and songwriter, was immediately concerned about the prospect of his wife giving up one of her organs. It wasn't easy for you to hear that news, was it?
No, it wasn't easy for me to hear that. I think the turning point for me was I'd written a song for Joan, a love song. And this thought came to me like, wow, this is why I wrote this, because Joan came to my rescue in my life. And it only makes, sense that she would come to Ani's aid.
Joan actually went into physical training and onto a special diet for her kidney.
I'm trying to give Ani as much lease on this kidney as she can possibly get.
Even her no-nonsense Brooklyn attitude broke down on this day when doctors scanned her kidney for an image of it. This woman, who never had been in surgery in her life, got a first-hand look at the gift she had volunteered to give.
I'm looking at a kidney, but it's like giving her my heart.
Yeah.
When the secret leaked out at work, one of the unofficial titles of this story quickly became All for Madi.
Has anyone told you that you were crazy?
Not that I'm crazy, but, have you really thought about it? Are you sure? Maybe you might think about reconsidering. Someone did tell me, I hope you're not a match.
They're protecting you.
Protecting me.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I almost feel like this is like the opportunity where a person could actually play God in a way and just kind of like improve a person's life. Just like that.
Those of us who were waiting with Ani and Joan for the day of the transplant had heard what the doctors had said, that something could still go wrong, but it didn't really register. Not until it happened.
Where should I look?
Two friends with one rare story to tell about giving till it hurts.
I don't feel sorry for myself, but when you're stressed out, you break down.
When 2020 continues after this from our ABC stations.
Hi, it's me. It's your mommy. Yeah. We say it all the time, my family, that she's a little miracle baby. Didn't know if I was going to have her. She's amazing to me.
It was all about Madeline Whitney, Madi for short.
You look good.
A newborn who was at the epicenter of a suspenseful and dramatic 7 months when her mother, Ani, went into kidney failure, and Ani's boss, Joan LaFosse, stepped up to offer one of her own kidneys to Ani for transplant, to keep her off a waiting list that could stretch out for years.
I'm sure it's really pulling her in a lot of directions. What a joyful event to be followed by, worrying about your own health now.
I don't feel sorry for myself, but when you're stressed out, you break down.
The stress was compounded when a new problem cropped up. At this meeting with surgeon Alan Benvenisti, director of the kidney transplant program at New York's St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital, the two friends thought they would get the final go-ahead for surgery. Instead, they learned that their final series of tests showed that Ani had developed new antibodies against Joan's kidney.
Remember, Ani had a pregnancy, and pregnancy sometimes causes a spike in antibodies.
Suddenly, this plan aimed at giving Ani the ability to raise her daughter without going on dialysis, without suffering failing health, this grand plan was put on hold.
Joan was visibly nervous, visibly upset, which made me worry, just worry about her.
It was like training for a marathon, Joan said, and then having it called off.
When we hit this bump, it didn't feel like a bump at the time. It felt like something was wrong. I even thought, am I the right person at this point?
And it was a critical point. Ani was within weeks of having to go on dialysis. She was anemic. She was exhausted because of her failing kidney and barely able to care for Madi. With time running short, Dr. Benvenisti turned to a process he uses on only about 5% of his kidney transplant patients. He put Ani through plasmapheresis, which temporarily removed antibodies from her blood to prevent them from attacking the transplant.
And the idea is to take the antibody out and replace it with fluids that don't have the antibody.
Afterwards, another cross-match was done between Joan and Ani, and this time, Dr. Benvenisti felt it was safe to go ahead with surgery.
Hi, Eric.
This was the day they had planned for and tested for and imagined for so many months, June 30th, 2008. At 6 a.m., everyone began arriving in the lobby of St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital. Ani brought new baby pictures. She had slept, Joan had not.
I really want to go in like Rocky. I'm at the top of the stairs and my hands are up in the air and I'm bouncing up and down and we're getting into the ring together.
Among the other friends of Ani's who came for the event was Lorraine DeBlanche. She had volunteered one of her own kidneys for Ani in case more complications had arisen. For the group of friends and for the husbands and families, there was that alternating sense of relief that something was finally going to happen and concern over the surgery itself.
Good luck. See you on the other side. God bless. Bro.
Joan was the first to be wheeled into the operating room, and it was the first time in her life she ever had been in surgery with all its potential risks.
This whole thing has been a whirlwind. I think in many ways the physical act of giving the kidney is almost easier for me because I'm not a good bystander.
Right now we're doing everything we can right now to expose the kidney without actually touching it.
There is extraordinary drama as you watch. In an operating room with long, glowing tubes illuminated by a fiber optic halogen light source, miniature cameras were placed inside Joan's body. Surgeons Fred Kimmelsteele and James McGinty prepared to remove Joan's left kidney laparoscopically, avoiding a large incision.
Kidney looks fine.
About halfway through Joan's 3.5-hour procedure, Ani was wheeled out of her room into surgery. It was the first time she had seen her husband, Will, who had been so calm, suddenly react with such intensity.
You know, I've never seen him hysterical crying before. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's just like, nothing. I'm like, are you crying because my father's crying? And he said, no. I'm like, oh my God, just get me into that room.
We are exposing the iliac artery and vein, which is the artery and vein that's going to be hooked up to Joni's kidney.
Dr. Benvenisti's job was to prepare her in advance to receive Joan's kidney as soon as it was ready.
All the blood vessels that we need to hook the kidney up are dissected and ready to be clamped.
In the room next door, Joan's kidney was removed from the laparoscopic incision at 11:16 a.m. and passed to Dr. Benvenisti. It was a remarkable sight, the gift itself ready for transplant. Immediately, Dr. Benvenisti flushed Joan's kidney with a saline solution and began to prepare it for Ani.
Okay. Flushed beautifully.
Minutes ago, it had been a functioning organ in one human being. Now it was being measured and trimmed and tailored so it could be fit into another. Around 17,000 kidney transplants are performed each year in the U.S., but each one is a milestone. They are never routine.
I mean, the kidney is in, it looks really good.
To the surgeon, this is the defining moment, when he first sees urine pass from the transplant patient through her new kidney.
Well, now it's Ani's. She has laid claim to the kidney.
Is that the magic moment they talk about in transplant surgery?
It's pretty neat. I find it miraculous every time I see it.
Shortly before she left the operating room, Ani was awakened.
Okay, Ani, Doing good.
No one can predict how long this transplant will last. Under the best circumstances, it could be good for another 20 or 30 years. Success rates are greater if the donor is living.
Yes.
I have a visitor for you.
Hi, Z. Oh my God, you're so cute.
2 days after the surgery, Joan and Ani saw each other again for the first time.
How are you feeling?
I feel good today.
Well, we both looked a little smacked up. And it was just like this experience that we both went through that no one else can experience.
Wow.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Oh.
Joan was back at work in a few weeks, healthier, she says, because of all the dieting and exercise she did preparing for the transplant. Ani returned 3 months after her surgery in September. It was already apparent that she got what she wished for.
Now it's like I have the energy to wake up when Maddie's just like, you know, screaming for the pacifier.
Madi Whitney is still happily unaware of all the changes and transitions in the lives around her leading up to her first Christmas. The big gift she already has, and some future Christmas, her mother and the person who gave it to her can tell her why.
And when you say you understood what the gift is, you meant life?
Life and hope and future.
How do you define hope?
Maddie is hope.